Okay, Matt. So we're going to keep this super conversational like we do anyway. So tell me, a bit about who you are, what you do. I'd love for you to talk about just how, for my sake, you found yourself in the path that you are currently on.
Sure. So, my name's Matt Kerr. I work for a company called CRB. We do design and construction and consulting for the life sciences and food and beverage industries, primarily research and manufacturing facilities. I've been with the company for just under 16 years, leading operations in some way, shape, or form for about 9 years. About 3 years ago, in August of 2019, I stepped into a new role in the organization. I moved out to California from the East Coast and took over in this regional leadership role, regional vice president of operations for our West Coast. So I oversee operations for 4 offices. I have a team of leaders that report up through me. It was definitely a step up in terms of my career, a step up in responsibilities. And in many ways, it was really the first time I had been in a role leading other leaders. I felt like I had led managers in the past, people that were kind of leading projects or smaller scale operations. But this was the first time kind of being in a leadership role where my responsibility was to lead through the other leaders. And I spent probably the first 3 or 4 months of my tenure trying to do things the same way, which was a lot of my own effort and not fully understanding the importance of connection and building a leadership team and what that meant. The analogy I've used in the past is I kind of felt like I was that player on a basketball team that thought the best way to win the game was to be the one that takes all the shots, right? So, trying my hardest, really well intentioned, pouring my heart and soul, working 60, 70 hours a week, trying my hardest to kind of get things going in the operation side and build this region up, while there were people around me that wanted to help that I wasn't engaging in the right way. So I had heard through another couple of our regions in the company about some work that they had done through Table Group. I hadn't really spent any time outside of, I think I read one of Pat's books years ago, and I probably been at the time wasn't ready for it. I think I kind of shelved it. It was like, that sounds a little feel goodish. But kind of went through, engaged with Table Group, started having conversations about what it is that it looks like to build a cohesive leadership team and how that would really allow us to hit a different level. If I started to pour my energy not into doing the work myself, but to facilitate the space for leaders to be the best versions of themselves. And that's really what I've been doing for the last 3 years. I would say the vast majority of my time now I spend kind of on that aspect of it. In terms of fully engaging through our leadership team, there's still operational responsibilities, there's still tangible tasks, managerial tasks I have, but the vast majority of my effort is really going into building a cohesive leadership team, creating clarity, communicating that clarity out to our team, and then reinforcing it through a variety of ways. So that's a big part of what I do and what my focus is.
When you were in that initial phase and you said that you were doing more of the stuff that you had been taught or what you felt was just you were doing what had come natural, but you were working longer hours, you were sort of trying to be everything all at once. What was some of the pain points that you were experiencing around you and the frustrations that you were having?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the first was just not getting the results, right? It felt like I was putting a lot of time and energy into things. I felt like I had good systemic answers, procedural changes and systemic changes or process-based changes, and we would put them in place and they just wouldn't result into kind of the changes I was looking for or produce the results I was looking for. So that was definitely frustrating. I think the second piece that I discovered pretty quickly, and I'll credit people, there's a couple of people on my leadership team today that I really give this kind of awareness moment, them credit for this awareness moment, was I had a conversation about 3 months into the job, and it was them challenging me and approaching me about their lack of engagement. And with that lack of engagement, kind of a lack of trust, they felt like I wasn't being a team player. And I pride myself on being collaborative. It's one of our core values. It's one of my personal values. I feel like, I played team sports growing up. So I always felt like I was really someone who thrived in a team, and getting that feedback from them where they felt like I wasn't being sort of a team player, it really hurt in a healthy way in the long run, but it hurt hearing them say that. And I think I felt, pretty disappointed by that. So those were kind of the two primary feelings, right? I think frustration, hurt. I probably wouldn't have been able to put this word to it then, but I definitely can now. But by also trying to pour my time and energy into doing a lot of different things that don't quite align with what my passions or working geniuses are, I was probably finding myself unfulfilled, and not enjoying every day. To the point where about 3 months in, after that conversation, I remember going home and telling my wife, like, I think I made a tremendous mistake. Like, this was a bad idea. So
what was it? What were the benefits that you experienced after working with Table Group? Because at this point now, you've continued working with Table Group for a period of time. So what were the benefits that you experienced after working with our company?
Well, I would say as of today, so it'll be about 3 years, and it will be 3 years in January since our first engagement. And from a business side of things, I look at where our region is today and our year-over-year growth. And if I just measure it by results, the results being the tip of the pyramid, our performance as a region has been arguably the most stable, successful region in the company over the last 3 years, especially from where we started to where we are today. So, our kind of by all quantifiable metrics, we're doing things really well. We're winning the right work. We have, good financial outcomes. And so that's kind of starting on the right side of the equation in terms of the byproduct of doing the work. I think in more of an intangible way, but definitely more of an impactful way, I look at our team and our team's commitment to each other and the relationships that we forge, and how comfortable and safe people feel day in, day out, while also how much time and energy they're investing into each other to drive that kind of high performance in each other and in us as a team. And it's a great feeling to show up every day working alongside people that I'm seeing them recognize new heights to their potential and help each other get there. The interaction between them, the interaction between us, is just so fulfilling. It allows us to have a really difficult conversations in a really healthy way. There's this kind of heightened awareness and empathy that we have for each other that allows us to build true trust and true connectivity. We're constantly surfacing, I think, the best ideas. So it's allowing us to be smarter. And this year especially was a great testament to the fact that, our year started off in a not so great place from a results perspective, but because of the work we had put into it, the resilience of our team allowed us to be able to sit down, avoid finger pointing, avoid the kind of dynamic from falling apart, and instead rally around the solutions of saying, okay, we all have to help each other out, get through this. And so, turning that from a really bad start into a great year, it just kind of was, it was probably the icing on the cake for me that showed me that if you do what it is that you need to do in those elements and you kind of stay committed to the process, the results will come. And even when the results aren't there, you can still find your way to the results through the process, right?
I love that.
So finally, from a personal perspective, personally meaning me as a leader in my own journey, and then me as a human being in my own journey, I feel like I've experienced the most growth in the last 3 years than I've ever experienced before. you
Wow.
know, I get to work every day with this group of people that my responsibility is to lead them and serve them. But the amount of learning I get from them, the ability to show up in a room and look around the table and know that my their expectation of me and my expectation of me is that not that I'm the smartest person at the table, but just the person that brings a certain value to the table along with them, and that each of us has our own gifts and talents and geniuses that we can just kind of play off of each other in that way. It means that I'm constantly learning from them. I'm constantly getting challenged by them. They're comfortable enough to push into me when they don't think I'm being the best leader I can be. And that's allowed me to have, I think, a real pretty significant growth in terms of my own capacity as a leader, um, and a fulfillment in the sense of just real strong professional and personal relationships with people, that, you know, we share in each other's kind of accomplishments and successes, but we also share in each other's pain. And the last 3 years
Mhm.
have been very pain filled for all of us for a variety of reasons. Obviously, with everything going on in the world, it's leading today, I think, is harder than it's ever been before. And to have a
Yeah.
group of people around you that are, you know, helping you through those valleys and, um, looking out for you and carrying you in those low moments, whether it's professionally, you know, low or personally low. Um, it's taken that meaning of fulfillment and work to a whole new level for me. So
That's incredible. Having been around your team, it feels like, and I'm hesitant to even throw this out there because it can be misperceived as soft, but or in terms of soft skills in such a hard culture like you all work in. But it feels as though the main driver, and this is the top driver for the highest performing teams, including those like the Navy SEALs, is really love. Like there's love in that team,
yeah.
which is incredible. And I know that you all have worked hard to do that, and that's intangible, right? And the results are tangible, but what's intangible is how you all care for each other, and
Yeah.
that's powerful. So the last question I would ask you is, what would you say to a leader who is facing what you mentioned, like that element of frustration, some hurt, maybe I made a mistake, they're unfulfilled in what they're doing, they're not seeing the kind of results that they want to see, and they're considering working with us, working with Table Group. What would you say to a leader who's just considering that?
Yeah. I- these aren't my words. I think it's Brene Brown who kind of says it best, which is lean into the discomfort, right? And
Mm,
I feel like it's so easy as a leader in an organization, regardless of what your business is, uh, to really be inclined to solve problems through a kind of more tactical or kind of logic based approach. And this feels initially very weird and almost counterintuitive because you're leaning into emotion and you're leaning into relationships and you're like, it's not going to have an immediate tangible benefit to it. Uh,
mhm,
but what I would encourage a leader to really understand is that the more you invest in the interpersonal relationships, the more you invest in that connectivity, you know, the more you build that true foundation of trust and openness, especially amongst a leadership team, the easier it gets to become intelligent and smart in a more sustainable way. And,
mhm,
you know, it's really about creating an environment, creating a space where you're allowing each other to be the best versions of yourself so others can be the best versions of themselves. And that is a much more lasting way to build a successful business. It
right,
will take time. That's the other thing I'd probably offer up is to be patient. You
yeah,
can't measure the results in relationship building, you know, in days and weeks and even months. For us,
mhm,
you know, I think that it took us probably every bit of 18 months to get that kind of flywheel spinning. And probably
mhm,
the last 18 months to keep it spinning and spinning in a really positive way. And I think where we are as a leadership team today is, it still takes work like any relationship. You can never take a day off in that regard. But looking back on it, I think that patience and that commitment to it especially in the early months where it felt clunky and messy and uncomfortable, and sometimes felt like it was exposing and surfacing some pretty deep wounds for people, personal wounds, not just professional ones. You kind of have to push through that, be patient with it, and understand that the results will come. And again, if I look at where our business is today, now 3 years in, I look at how we engage with each other, and I look at the challenge ahead of us. You know, something I just shared with our, not just our leadership team, our entire region, to close out 2022, looking ahead to 2023 and knowing that there's going to be some pretty significant challenges in front of us as a business. I've never been more confident in our ability to overcome those challenges because of what we've done as a leadership team and as a region over the last 3 years in investing in this. We have such a deep-rooted sense of trust in each other, connectivity, a love, like you talked about, that to me helps me feel really, really confident. And we may not have the answers today, but I know we're going to find them and overcome the challenges that come our way.
Matt, you're a great leader. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you, buddy.